attached to bonds issued by, for instance, Nigeria. Do the panelists feel that that narrative premium is significant? And if you should point to one thing that could sort of bring that down, what would that be?
Okay, so Minister Adelaide, if you can start, and we will then try to wrap up. These are the last questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me just start with the question about the resource mobilization. In as much as perhaps we may think that there isn't much to do with resource mobilization, especially domestic resource mobilization, there's actually a lot to do. We are one of the, or we are a continent where the efficiency of collection is still very, very low, and what we need to do and where there is room to act is actually to improve the efficiency of the collection, not necessarily to do much more in terms of raising the rates. There is room to increase the base. Our sectors or our economies are largely composed of informal, a large informal sector that is not accounted for or that is not taxed in an appropriate way. So there's room here to do much more with the informal sector, putting in systems, using AI to be able to improve the efficiency of collection, and more importantly, looking into other sources of financing apart from taxes. For example, land, the use of land and other assets. So there's much more to do in taxes that is not really being done right now, but where there is quite room for improvement. Now, with regard to the premium for the risk premium for Africa, I think the biggest question here and elephant in the room is the ratings that Africa gets from rating agencies only as a result of perception and not as a result of the knowledge of Africa and African markets on the ground. This is a systemic and endemic problem that we have been suffering for a very long time. We would request, and our request has always been, that Africa must be rated fairly. African institutions must be rated fairly. African economies must be understood as much as we need to understand policies behind our economies. So it is important to engage. There's a narrative that is always being put that we need African rating agencies. I don't think it is just that. It is for the prevailing and the available rating agencies to rate Africa for what it is and to understand the fundamentals of the African economy. To the IMF, the question about the response of the IMF. The IMF has facilities, rapid response facilities that are available and that are for use in emergency cases like we have now. I, however, do not think that there would be sufficient. There would be sufficient for what would otherwise be if this conflict goes on for a lengthened period of time. There will have to be consideration for more, or not more necessarily in terms of resources, but for more innovative instruments to help developing countries, but also for developing countries to help themselves as well in terms of policies, in terms of adjusting. A change of this nature requires adjustment. We cannot hide away from that fact. There has to be adjustment to some extent. It may not be as deep as it is required, but there has to be adjustment for us to be able to meet each other halfway. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. A quick word, Minister Ndoba and Minister Edun, please.
Thank you so much. I don't want to repeat, what have been said already, because a lot have been said regarding the domestic resources mobilization. Let me just say that we have to care about the balance between the taxation, the rate of the taxation, and the service to the population. This is very important when we are managing our regulatory framework regarding tax. So what we are doing actually in the Central African Republic, we are looking at how to better tax the mining sectors. In 2024, the mining sectors represent, particularly gold, represent 0.5% of our domestic resource mobilization. In 2025, it comes to 2.5%. So this is a way to, mobilize revenue. But we also have to work on the diaspora bonds, the green bonds, etc., which are tools very important, but on which there's a lot to do. We call for IMF to help us onto the regulatory framework on those aspects, so that we can move forward. Digitalization key, but I don't want to repeat more on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. A last word, Minister.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. In terms of emergency response, of course, as the Honourable Minister says, there are in place mechanisms, and I think the IMF has even talked about a kitty of $50 billion. And we all know that the funding will largely go to Africa, because those are the most vulnerable countries. And the reality is that what we're asking for in this instance is that the funds and the support be released, because it's non-funding as well, but they be released quickly and at scale. In terms of domestic resource mobilization, it begins with macroeconomic reform. It begins with the right macroeconomic policies. And the example I will give is that in Nigeria, it began with removal of untargeted broad subsidies that were costing up to 5% of GDP. And it is from there that we had market pricing of foreign exchange, market pricing of petroleum products, rather than subsidized funding mechanisms in those areas. That's where domestic resource mobilization is built up from. In terms of the premium, it's clear that Africa pays a premium, and it should be addressed. And one of the ways in which it can be addressed, the financial markets are innovative, they're creative, and there is talk amongst the multilateral institutions for more use of guarantees. Using a guarantee of a very strong rating. A guarantee gives you of a highly rated company, a AAA. If you take a guarantee from a AAA, you can fund at AAA rates. It's as simple as that. And I think that's an idea that I think we should run with. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you, governors, for being here on this panel. Today's discussion underscores that Africa debt dynamics are being shaped by a more volatile and shock global environment, and we I think, try to deepen it a little bit more. Thank you again. You still have one more day to go with the spring meetings, so we hope you will enjoy, and we hope to see you in October in Thailand. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a live press conference of the G20 Finance Ministers on the sidelines of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank Spring Meetings in Washington.